Item Number: SCP-Y-032. Object Class: Apollyon. Special Containment Procedures. Due to the unprecedented and cataclysmic nature of SCP-Y-032, traditional containment measures have proven ineffective. As the event occurred globally and simultaneously affected baseline reality and Provisional Reality-Y-1, the SCP Foundation's primary focus is ongoing information suppression and recovery of all remaining evidence. The Foundation has initiated Operation Absent Holiday, a global effort to recover all recordings, security footage, social media posts, and any other forms of documentation from the public. This is achieved through front companies posing as law enforcement agencies, data corruption initiatives, internet blackouts, and direct Foundation intervention. Amnestic distribution on a massive scale is ongoing, with Class A amnestics being deployed to individuals who were directly involved in or aware of the events of the Lost Day. Foundation agents embedded in government organizations worldwide are tasked with ensuring that any remaining data regarding SCP-Y-032 is collected, with special attention to high-profile individuals, major news organizations, and social media influencers who might have inadvertently recorded evidence. Ongoing Foundation efforts aim to eliminate all traces of SCP-Y-032 from public knowledge. However, it is acknowledged that not all footage and data may have been recovered, and special task forces including MTF Iota 10, Damn Feds, and MTF Gamma 5, Red Herrings, as well as memetic specialists from MTF Zeta 0, Bad Bunch, are deployed to track and neutralize any instances where remnants of the event reappear. Description: SCP-Y-032, referred to as the Lost Day, is a K-class lifted veil scenario that occurred on October 31, 2023, involving a full-scale temporal and dimensional freeze lasting exactly 24 hours. The event, which affected both Provisional Reality-Y-1 and baseline reality, resulted in time stalling at midnight on October 31st and introduced a catastrophic incursion of anomalous entities across the globe. These entities manifested as grotesque, distorted versions of Halloween costumes worn by individuals. The event is believed to have originated from Provisional Reality-Y-1, which had been showing signs of temporal disturbances prior to the event. Footage from drones surveying the land of Provisional Reality-Y-1 had caught view of entire landscapes within the restless reality beginning to freeze in place, with an eerie stillness that seemed wholly unnatural. This frozen stillness spread slowly across the entire landscape of Provisional Reality-Y-1 over the course of October 31st, eventually converging on SCP-Y-001 Yesteryear, connecting the anomalous stillness to baseline reality. The time-freezing effect began at 12 a.m., halting all clocks and technological devices in both realities. Although individuals were able to move and communicate, no time appeared to pass. The event lasted until 12:01 a.m. on November 1st, 2023, at which point the flow of time resumed globally. However, the intervening 24 hours became a period of absolute terror and chaos, with mass reports of horrific attacks by monstrous entities based on costumes worn by individuals for Halloween. During the event, the SCP Foundation and global law enforcement agencies received overwhelming reports of violent creature attacks, leading to the classification of SCP-Y-032 as a K-class lifted veil scenario. Despite efforts to contain the situation, the Foundation failed to prevent widespread chaos and devastation. The following is a partial list of some of the most disturbing incidents reported during the event. Location: New York City, USA. Description: Foundation personnel stationed in New York City were inundated with reports of popular cartoon characters turned into monstrous abominations roaming the streets, attacking civilians. The most disturbing feature of these entities was their resemblance to beloved animated figures, twisted into nightmarish parodies of their original forms. One of the most chilling manifestations was a grotesque version of cartoon characters from various children's shows spotted in Times Square. These entities, nearly double the size of a human, had unnaturally bulging eyes and a grotesquely exaggerated grin. For many of them, instead of their traditional character hands, had fingers elongated into razor-sharp claws. Surveillance footage captured the entities tearing through a crowd of pedestrians, using their claws to dismember victims with terrifying speed and precision. Witnesses described them moving with a disturbingly jovial demeanor, skipping through the streets and humming a warped version of the classic theme songs played in their respective TV series. One horrifying video showed Mr. Miffles, a popular educational cartoon character, in the form of a large, fluffy, bipedal creature, picking up a screaming woman and splitting her in two, tossing her remains aside as if they were confetti. Multiple attempts by law enforcement to shoot the creature were futile, as bullets seemed to pass through its body without any effect. Over 90 civilians were killed by the entity before the event was undone. Another high-profile entity group cited were twisted versions of popular princesses from common stories, such as Sleeping Beauty, Cinderella, or Snow White, appearing near Central Park. These figures were described as beautiful princesses at first glance, with their iconic ball gowns glimmering in the moonlight. However, as they approached victims, their faces would distort, their eyes becoming hollow pits, and their once elegant forms would grow into exaggerated, almost cartoonish features, with large mouths sporting sharp teeth and arms that appeared to stretch endlessly to reach their prey. The creatures were seen stalking individuals, luring them in with their enchanting appearance, before swiftly devouring them with their exaggeratedly large mouths. Or in the case of one instance that appeared to be Snow White, it pointed at a man it had cornered in an alley before 7 small, disturbing and malformed dwarves crawled out of the entity's shadow and began eating the man. One particularly disturbing instance was recorded when Cinderella encountered a group of tourists. She ripped the throat out of one victim with a high kick, her glass slipper slicing through flesh like butter. As the others tried to flee, she pursued, leaving a trail of blood as her glass-covered feet shattered upon impact, but immediately reformed, making her all the more terrifying. Location: Los Angeles, USA. Description: the suburbs of Los Angeles were plagued by the emergence of entities dubbed the normal people, which at first appeared as ordinary individuals participating in Halloween festivities. These figures walked door to door, knocking on homes under the guise of trick-or-treaters. Upon closer inspection, however, disturbing details emerged, namely their lack of facial features and seams running down their backs, suggesting that their human appearance was nothing more than a disguise. Reports from neighborhoods in Beverly Hills indicated that the normal people would approach homes in groups of 2 or 3, ringing doorbells and waiting to be let inside. From a distance, they seemed completely human, but as soon as they entered the homes, their faces would fade into smooth, blank surfaces. Their movements became stiff and mechanical, and their true forms, a nightmarish amalgamation of stitched skin, exposed muscle, and hollow eyes, were only visible when observed from the corner of one's eye or through squinted vision. One particularly gruesome account came from a family that invited a group of normal people into their home. A neighbor's Ring camera recorded the figures entering the house, appearing friendly and unassuming. However, moments later, blood-curdling screams echoed from inside, and when the police arrived, they discovered the family's skinned remains hanging in the living room, their skin peeled off in long strips. The creatures had vanished without a trace, leaving behind only a blood-soaked couch and scattered bones. Another report from Santa Monica described a group of 4 normal people entering a household after being mistaken for friends of the homeowner. The residents, a family of 5, were discovered hours later, each victim flayed with an almost surgical level of precision. One police report described how the youngest victim, a 9-year-old boy, had been partially skinned in under a minute, with his remaining flesh peeled back like the skin of an orange. Eyewitnesses reported that these entities moved with unnatural speed once their true forms were revealed, often immobilizing their victims within seconds and using their sharp, claw-like fingers to strip the skin away. By the time authorities responded to the initial distress calls, the normal people had already moved on to another home, leaving behind nothing but flayed bodies and blood-soaked floors. These were believed to be some of the greatest contributors to the death toll during the Lost Day, as there were scattered reports of them across the globe. Location: Tokyo, Japan. Description: Tokyo experienced a series of bizarre and deadly encounters involving anime character costumes that came to life in twisted and horrific forms. These entities possessed powers reflective of their source material, but were far more dangerous and grotesque than any fictional depiction. A person dressed in a mecha costume was seen rampaging through the Shibuya district, their costume transforming into a massive metallic exoskeleton with sharp, claw-like appendages. Footage showed the entity ripping through buildings, its metal claws being used to disembowel civilians. At one point, the mecha figure was seen crushing a pedestrian beneath its foot before hurling a car across the street, causing a deadly explosion. Location: Berlin, Germany. Description: Berlin saw a surge of attacks from creatures resembling werewolves and vampires, though these entities were unlike the traditional versions of the myths they were based on. Despite numerous attempts by civilians and law enforcement to repel them using silver bullets, garlic, crosses, and other folklore-inspired defenses, the creatures remained unaffected, killing indiscriminately across the city. Several massive werewolves were seen tearing through residential areas, their bodies twisted into grotesque parodies of the classic lycanthrope. These creatures had bloated, muscle-bound forms with elongated jaws filled with rows of sharp teeth. They moved with lightning speed, ripping through doors and walls with their claws, dragging civilians from their homes. One report from Kreuzberg detailed how a werewolf lifted an entire Volkswagen van and smashed it into the ground, instantly killing the family inside. Another survivor described being chased through the streets by a werewolf that tore through the side of a building to grab a fleeing man, ripping his limbs off in seconds before devouring his remains. Local police were powerless to stop the rampage, with death tolls surmounting at a rapid rate from these monstrosities. There was no end to these types of disturbing reports, with horrific entities emerging and wreaking chaos across the globe, soliciting an eventual lifted veil K-class scenario for the SCP Foundation. A global signal was set to override all forms of media, announcing an emergency broadcast from the SCP Foundation. The following is an audio log containing the recorded broadcast sent out by the Foundation on the Lost Day.
This is an emergency broadcast from the SCP Foundation. We are an international organization dedicated to the containment and management of anomalous threats. Although our operations have remained classified due to the severity of the current crisis, we are revealing our presence today to ensure your safety. A global anomalous event is underway, and we urge all civilians to remain indoors, lock all doors and windows, and stay away from anyone in Halloween costumes. These entities are not human and are actively hostile. Avoid approaching them at all costs. Some of these entities appear to be normal people, but closer observation reveals they lack facial features or have seams down their backs. These beings are predators. If you encounter them, hide immediately. Do not engage. For your safety, the following SCP Foundation sites have been opened for civilian refuge. Site 14, Site 77, Site 19, Site 86. If you can reach any of these locations safely, proceed immediately and follow instructions from on-site personnel. Do not approach if you are being pursued by hostile entities. If travel is unsafe, shelter in basements or windowless rooms and minimize your visibility. Do not approach anyone dressed in Halloween costumes, especially those that appear unnatural. Avoid eye contact with anyone acting suspicious or showing distorted features. Reports indicate that these entities may take on the appearance of normal people at first glance, but they will reveal their true form when viewed out of the corner of your eye. If you encounter any of these creatures, do not engage. These entities are highly lethal. All major cities have been affected. Stay away from windows and lock all doors. If possible, find shelter in areas with minimal exposure, such as basements or interior rooms. Do not use electronic devices to capture or record the events. The creatures may be drawn to electronic interference. We are working to contain this incident, but it is imperative that you remain hidden. Time itself may feel wrong. Do not rely on clocks, phones, or other timekeeping devices. The Foundation is taking action, but until this event has concluded, consider every hour between now and the next dawn as critical. If you are located near a designated Foundation site or safety zone, proceed there immediately. Emergency personnel will guide you. Remember, do not let anyone unfamiliar into your home. Do not trust familiar faces if they appear strange in any way. We have received reports of individuals being skinned alive by these entities. Your safety depends on your ability to avoid them at all costs. The SCP Foundation is actively working to contain the situation, but your survival depends on staying hidden and following these instructions. We will continue issuing this broadcast until further notice. Stay safe. Help is on the way. Hope is not lost.
This broadcast was intended to warn the public of safe zones established at Foundation sites and to give survival instructions for avoiding the anomalous entities. The broadcast was set to air indefinitely after this initial broadcast was released, but just as the clock struck 12:01 a.m., all communications ceased abruptly. Footage recovered from Foundation broadcast stations revealed that as the countdown to the global broadcast reached 0 and the first broadcast aired, the screens went black and an eerie static filled the airwaves. Several Foundation personnel reported experiencing a deep sense of unease as the static droned on. Moments before the broadcast ended, a single message appeared briefly on the screen in red distorted text reading, "Do you remember when the clock stopped?" The broadcast abruptly ended and time resumed across both Provisional Reality-Y-1 and Baseline Reality. The undoing occurred instantaneously, with all evidence of the anomaly's presence erased, except for the recorded footage that remained inexplicably untouched. Conclusion: the aftermath and ongoing threat, SCP-Y-032, remains one of the more devastating and unexplained anomalous events in Foundation history. Despite the undoing of the event and the return to normalcy for the global population, there remains an undercurrent of suspicion within the SCP Foundation. Although mass amnestic campaigns have neutralized public awareness of the event, the fact that recorded footage was left intact suggests that some element of SCP-Y-032 persists. The event was classified as a lifted veil K-class scenario, and although the immediate threat has subsided, there are concerns that the anomalous entities may return. The unexplained red message broadcast at the conclusion of The Lost Day implies that some external force, possibly connected to Provisional Reality-Y-1, retains influence over both realities. Several theories have been proposed regarding the origin and intent behind SCP-Y-032, including a failed reality stabilization attempt in Provisional Reality-Y-1, which triggered the temporal freeze, an anomalous intelligence capable of manipulating global perceptions of time and space, a ritualistic event linked to ancient forgotten deities or entities that correspond with Halloween's liminal and spiritual significance. To date, no conclusive evidence has been found to explain the root cause of SCP-Y-032, nor has there been any indication of a repeat occurrence. Provisional Reality-Y-1 remains under intense scrutiny, with specialized task forces monitoring for any signs of renewed activity or fluctuations. Efforts are ongoing to ensure that the events of October 31st, 2023, now known as the Lost Day, are fully contained within the Foundation's classified archives, and all digital and physical evidence is securely destroyed. Despite this, the fear lingers among some Foundation personnel that SCP-Y-032 was merely the precursor to something far worse. The possibility of another Lost Day event remains a looming threat, one that may test the very limits of the SCP Foundation's ability to contain. This is Director Knightley, signing off on another report at Site-Y-1. I hope you consider subscribing to stay updated with our latest findings. I eagerly look forward to having your audience in future reports.